Ethan's eyes opened to nothing but black. The air was thick and warm, carrying a strange metallic sweetness that made his stomach twist. His head pounded as if something heavy had struck it, and his ears caught faint, wet sounds in the distance. Slow, deliberate chewing. He tried to move, but his limbs felt weak, and the ground beneath him was damp and sticky. A sudden breath brushed his ear, soft, warm, close. Then a whisper, barely more than the wind. "Don't move, they can smell your fear." His heart slammed in his chest. The voice was female, calm but urgent. He froze, his breath caught halfway, afraid even the sound of exhaling would betray him. His eyes searched the darkness, but saw nothing, only the faint outline of a shape beside him. "They're hunting," the voice whispered again, this time lower, almost inaudible. "If you make a sound, they'll find you." Ethan's instincts screamed to demand answers, to ask who she was, where they were, but the tone in her voice stopped him. It wasn't kindness. It was survival. Something shifted in the darkness, a faint scuff against stone, followed by a deep, guttural growl. The sound was close, very close. Ethan's skin prickled as every muscle in his body went rigid. The presence beside him moved, and he caught the faint gleam of eyes, large, luminous, and unblinking. The stranger's head tilted toward the sound, listening. Then Ethan felt the sharp, cold tip of something, maybe a claw, pressed gently to his throat. Not enough to hurt, but enough to keep him still. "Not a word," she breathed, so quiet it almost disappeared into the air. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, crunched over the damp ground. The growl deepened, and Ethan could hear the predator breathing now, a deep, wet inhale, like it was savoring the scent in the air. The figure beside him shifted again, pressing closer until he could feel the heat of her body along his side. There was a strange mix to her scent, wild and sharp, but not unpleasant. The air between them was tight, her breathing slow and controlled. The footsteps stopped just a few feet away. Ethan could almost feel eyes scanning the dark, searching. The predator let out a low rumble, the kind that made the bones in his chest vibrate. His pulse thundered in his ears. The whisper came again, barely shaping the words, "Don't let it hear your heart." He didn't know how to do that, didn't know how to control the panic clawing through his ribs. But somehow, her voice cut through the fear. He focused on it, on the strange steadiness it gave him. A long moment passed. Then the footsteps began again, fading into the distance, followed by the sound of claws dragging against stone. Ethan didn't move, not yet. Finally, the pressure at his throat lifted. The figure shifted back slightly, and there was the faint scrape of something sharp against the ground. Then, for the first time, she spoke at a normal whisper. "My name is Syrah," she said, "and you are very, very unlucky to be here." Ethan swallowed hard. "Where is here?" "The pit," she replied simply, "where my kind keep prey before the feast." He froze at the word prey. "Your kind?" Syrah's eyes caught a faint glimmer of light from somewhere far above, revealing their golden hue, deep, strange, and predatory. When she smiled faintly, he saw teeth too sharp to belong to anything human. "I'm not here to eat you," she said, almost amused at his fear. "But if they hear us, it won't matter what I want." Ethan's mind raced. "Why help me?" Her expression changed, shadow flickering across her face. "Because once they know you're here, you'll have two choices. Become my kill or my property. One will keep you alive longer." Before he could respond, a loud metallic clang echoed from above. Both of them looked up as a heavy lock turned, the sound of gears grinding. A circular hatch began to open, spilling pale light into the pit. Syrah's hand shot out, gripping his jaw and forcing him to look at her. "Do exactly as I say," she whispered fiercely. "No hesitation, no questions." He could hear movement above, the scrape of claws, the heavy breathing of something massive getting closer. Shadows shifted against the growing light. "They will be here any second," Syrah said, her voice even lower now. She leaned so close her lips almost brushed his ear, and the words felt like a command that sank deep into his bones. "Pretend you're mine, or they'll kill you." The light from above spilled into the pit, revealing Syrah more clearly. Ethan's breath caught. Her skin was a strange, smooth texture, patterned faintly like scales that shimmered when the light hit them. Her golden eyes were sharp and watchful, and even in stillness, there was a dangerous grace in the way she moved. Her mouth was set in a thin line, but the curve of her sharp teeth showed whenever her lips parted. Two massive shapes appeared at the edge of the pit. They jumped down with a heavy thud that shook the ground. Their bodies were larger than Sira's, covered in rough, dark scales, and their arms were thick with muscle. Each of them carried a long, jagged blade that looked more like bone than metal. Ethan's heart pounded. The taller of the two turned its gaze toward him, nostrils flaring as if taking in his scent. A slow grin formed, revealing rows of teeth that could tear him apart in seconds. Sira moved quickly. She stepped in front of Ethan and wrapped her arm around his neck, pulling him close against her side. Her claws rested lightly over his collarbone, not enough to hurt, but enough to show possession. Her tail, long and sinuous, curled slightly around his leg. "This one is mine," she said in a firm voice that echoed in the pit. "Chosen by my will." The two warriors exchanged a look. The shorter one barked a laugh, the sound harsh and mocking. "You waste your right, Sira. Of all prey, you choose this soft, weak thing?" "He belongs to me," Sira repeated, her voice cold. "By bloodmark, I claim him." Ethan stayed still, but inside his mind was spinning. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. This was no request. This was a declaration. The taller warrior took a step forward, his eyes narrowing at Ethan. "The Hunt Mother will hear of this. Then tell her," Sira shot back. "I will stand by my claim." For a tense moment, no one moved. The warriors stared at her, and she stared back, unblinking. Finally, with a snarl, they turned away. They climbed back up toward the hatch, their heavy claws scraping against the stone. The hatch closed above them with a loud clang, and the pit was once again swallowed by shadow. Ethan let out the breath he had been holding. "What just happened?" Sira released him, but didn't step far away. Her gaze stayed fixed on the ceiling, as if listening for anything above. When she finally looked at him, her golden eyes were sharp. "I just saved your life, but now you are mine." He didn't like the way she said it. "What does that mean?" "In my clan," Sira explained, "when one claims prey as their chosen mate, no one else can kill them. It is the only law that even the Hunt Mother must respect." His chest tightened. "Mate? You told them I was your mate?" Her lips twitched in a small, humorless smile. "Would you prefer I let them rip you apart?" He didn't answer, and she tilted her head, studying him. "This is only a temporary protection. Soon, there will be a blood feast. The Hunt Mother will demand proof of my claim." Ethan's gut twisted. "What kind of proof?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, and she didn't answer right away. Instead, she crouched near the wall, her claws scratching lightly against the stone. "It will not matter," she said finally, "because we will be gone before that happens." His eyes widened. "Gone? You mean escape?" "Yes," Sira said, "but it will not be easy. There are tunnels that lead out of the pit, but they are not empty. You will need to follow my every move. If you make one mistake, you will die." Ethan hesitated. "Why are you helping me? If you're one of them, why not just let me be food?" Her gaze shifted, her expression unreadable. "I have my reasons. Maybe I hate the taste of human flesh. Maybe I enjoy defying my mother. Or maybe—" She let the sentence trail off, then rose to her full height. "It doesn't matter. If you want to live, you will do what I say." He nodded slowly. "Fine. I'll do what you say." "Good," Sira said, her voice soft but carrying an edge. "Because if you hesitate, if you doubt me, if you try to run in a different direction, they will find you before I do, and you will regret it." She stepped closer again, her presence looming over him. Her claws gently tapped against his chest, almost like a warning. "When the time comes, you will follow my scent and my shadow. Nothing else. Not a sound, not a light, not even the sound of your own thoughts will matter." Above them, faint sounds echoed, claws against stone, the distant rumble of alien voices. Sira's head tilted slightly, listening. Then she looked back at him. "They are watching us," she whispered. "But for now, they believe you are mine." Her words carried both reassurance and a strange chill, as if his survival was no longer his own choice. Somewhere above, the sound of a horn blew, long and deep, vibrating through the stone. Sira's golden eyes flashed in the dim light. "The feast is soon," she said, "and if we are still here when it begins, there will be no saving you." The sound of the horn faded, leaving a heavy silence in the pit. Ethan could feel the weight of Sira's words pressing on him. The thought of a feast, where he was meant to be the main course, made his skin crawl. Sira moved to the far wall and ran her claws along the stone, feeling for something. Ethan watched her, noticing the way her body tensed every time a faint noise echoed from above. She was alert, always listening. A faint thud broke the silence. Ethan turned and saw movement from the hatch above. The lock scraped, gears turned, and the hatch began to open again. Syrah's eyes narrowed. "They're coming back," she whispered, already stepping toward him. Her claws curled around his arm, pulling him close until his body was pressed against hers. Two warriors dropped into the pit once more, their golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. This time, they moved slower, circling. The taller one sniffed the air again, then stopped in front of Ethan. His gaze moved over him like a butcher inspecting meat. Syrah stepped forward, blocking his view. Her tail flicked in irritation, and she bared her sharp teeth. "I told you before. He is mine." The shorter warrior chuckled. "The Hunt Mother wants to see your claim for herself. She does not believe you waste your choice on a human." Syrah's claws flexed slightly against Ethan's shoulder, a silent warning to stay still. "She will see soon enough." Syrah replied coldly. "Tell her to prepare for the proof at the blood feast." The warriors exchanged a look. Then the tall one leaned in close to Syrah. "If you are lying, if you fail the proof, I will be the first to tear out your throat." Without waiting for a reply, both warriors turned and climbed back up. The hatch slammed shut above them. Ethan exhaled sharply. "Proof? What do they mean? What are you not telling me?" Syrah's gaze met his, unblinking. "In my clan, claiming a mate means showing the bond. If the bond is not real, the Hunt Mother will take you away, and you will die. She may kill me too." Ethan's stomach twisted. "And what's your plan for proving this bond?" Her eyes glinted faintly. "We won't stay for the feast. We leave tonight." He nodded quickly. "Good. Where do we go?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Through the feeding tunnels. They connect to the hunting grounds. From there, we reach the outer forest. Once there, you are free." Ethan glanced at the walls. "And these tunnels, they're not guarded?" "They are guarded by teeth," Syrah said flatly. "Young ones, half-grown. They attack anything that moves." "Perfect," Ethan muttered under his breath. She ignored his sarcasm and moved toward a shadowed corner of the pit. With a sharp push of her claws, she pried open a slab of stone. Behind it was a narrow passage, barely wide enough for him to fit. The air inside was colder, carrying a faint smell of damp earth and rot. "This is the way," she said. "But once we enter, there is no turning back. If they catch us in the tunnels, they will make us suffer before we die." Ethan hesitated for only a second. "Then let's not get caught." Syrah studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Stay close to me. Do not run ahead. If you hear anything behind us, do not look back. Just move faster." She slipped into the tunnel first, her movements silent. Ethan followed, his shoulders scraping against the walls. The darkness swallowed them quickly, the light from the pit fading until it was gone completely. The tunnel floor was uneven, slick in places where water dripped from above. Ethan kept one hand against the wall, the other near the sharpened bone Syrah had given him. He couldn't see her, but he could hear the faint sound of her breathing ahead. After several minutes, the sound of scratching echoed from somewhere deeper inside. Syrah froze, raising a hand for him to stop. The noise grew louder, a fast, skittering movement, like claws on stone. From the darkness ahead, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, low to the ground. Then another pair, and another. Small shapes, quick and restless, darted forward on all fours. Syrah bared her teeth. "Juveniles," she whispered. "Stay behind me." The creatures hissed, their jaws snapping open to reveal rows of sharp, needle-like teeth. One lunged forward, and Syrah struck with a quick slash of her claws, sending it tumbling back. The others shrieked, and the tunnel erupted with chaos. Ethan pressed himself against the wall as Syrah fought, her movements fast and fluid. She killed 2 more in seconds, but the smell of their blood filled the tunnel, making the rest frenzy. One juvenile slipped past her and came straight for Ethan. Instinct took over. He swung the bone weapon hard, striking its head. The creature dropped, twitching. Syrah glanced back at him, her expression unreadable. Then she turned and shoved the remaining creatures away, creating a brief opening. "Move," she ordered. They ran deeper into the tunnel, the sound of more skittering behind them. The air grew colder, the space wider, but the danger only seemed to grow. Ethan's chest burned from running, but he didn't dare slow. Syrah's voice reached him in the dark. "The next chamber is dangerous. Do exactly as I say, or you will die before you see the forest." The tunnel widened into a vast chamber, its walls glowing faintly with blue bioluminescent fungus. The light was enough to reveal towering shapes hanging from the ceiling, thick, coiled tendrils swaying gently as if breathing. Ethan slowed, his eyes darting upward. "What is this place?" he whispered. Syrah's tail flicked in warning. "The nesting grounds. Stay near me. Do not touch the tendrils. Do not step on anything that moves." Ethan's gaze dropped to the floor. It looked uneven, but as his eyes adjusted, he realized why. Small, curled forms lay scattered everywhere, each breathing slowly. Juveniles, dozens of them, sleeping in clusters. Between them, the ground seemed to ripple faintly, as if alive. Syrah began to move, her steps light and precise. Ethan followed, careful to place his feet where hers had been. The sound of his own heartbeat filled his ears. Halfway across, one of the tendrils above shifted. A droplet of thick liquid fell from it, landing on the ground with a soft hiss. Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself not to look up again. The path narrowed between two clusters of sleeping juveniles. One of them twitched in its sleep, letting out a faint growl. Ethan froze, afraid even his breath might wake it. Syrah glanced back, her golden eyes locking on his, and gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Move." He stepped forward. His foot caught on something soft, and a faint, wet tear echoed in the chamber. A sharp, high-pitched screech followed. The juvenile's eyes snapped open, glowing in the dim light. Syrah moved instantly, slashing her claws across its throat before it could rise. But the sound had already stirred the others. Low growls began to spread through the chamber. The coiled tendrils above trembled. "Run!" Syrah hissed. They sprinted, dodging between writhing shapes as the juveniles began to swarm. Tendrils lashed down from the ceiling, whipping the air with terrifying speed. One struck the stone beside Ethan, leaving a deep, smoking scar. Another wrapped around his arm, pulling him upward. Syrah leapt, slicing the tendril apart with her claws. Ethan fell hard onto the ground, but scrambled up, his adrenaline drowning out the pain. More tendrils whipped toward them, some tipped with jagged barbs. They reached the far side of the chamber, but a wall of juveniles blocked the exit tunnel. The creatures crouched low, hissing, their tails lashing. Syrah bared her teeth. "Stay behind me." She lunged first, cutting a path through with swift, brutal strikes. Ethan followed close, using his bone weapon to fend off any that got too near. One juvenile leapt onto his back, claws digging in. He slammed himself against the wall, feeling the impact jar through his bones, and the creature dropped away screeching. Syrah grabbed his arm and dragged him through the narrow gap she had made. They burst into the next tunnel, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing colder and sharper. Ethan's chest heaved with each breath, but Syrah didn't slow. "We must reach the bone gate before they catch us," she said without looking back. "What's the bone gate?" Ethan asked between breaths. "An old barrier," she replied, "built from the remains of the first great hunt. It keeps the young ones in. If we cross it, they will not follow." The slope grew steeper, forcing Ethan to half run, half slide. The walls glistened with moisture, and the ground became slippery underfoot. Twice he nearly lost his footing, but Syrah's quick grip kept him from falling. A distant rumble reached them from ahead. It grew louder, becoming a deep, rolling roar. Ethan realized it wasn't an animal, it was water. They rounded a bend and came to the edge of an underground river. The water rushed past violently, churning around jagged rocks. A crude bridge of bone and rope spanned the width, swaying in the damp air. On the far side, Ethan could just make out an archway of pale, jagged shapes, the bone gate. Syrah stepped onto the bridge without hesitation. "Do not look down," she warned. Ethan followed, the structure creaking under their combined weight. The river roared beneath them, the spray cold against his face. The bridge swayed harder as they reached the middle. From behind, a screech tore through the tunnel. Ethan looked back to see several juveniles pouring into view, their eyes glowing with hunger. "Hurry!" Syrah barked. They ran the rest of the way, the bridge swinging wildly under their feet. As soon as they stepped onto the far side, Syrah grabbed a thick rope and sliced through it with her claws. The bridge collapsed into the river, vanishing in the foaming water. The juveniles shrieked from the far side, but didn't attempt to jump the gap. Syrah straightened and led Ethan toward the bone gate. Up close, it was even more unsettling. An archway built entirely from enormous bones, some longer than a man's body, others twisted and sharp. Strange markings were carved into them, glowing faintly. The air beyond felt colder, emptier. Syrah stepped through first, then turned back to him. Once we pass this, the tunnels open into the hunting grounds. From there, we must be fast. The Hunt Mother will send her trackers soon. Ethan followed her through the arch, a chill running down his spine as the markings pulsed faintly under his hand. He didn't know what was ahead, but every step took him further from the pit and deeper into whatever danger lay beyond. The air beyond the bone gate was colder, sharper, carrying the scent of damp earth and something wild. The tunnel walls were wider here, marked with deep claw grooves that told Ethan other creatures used this path. Faint light glimmered ahead, the first sign that they might be nearing the surface. Syrah moved quickly, her steps silent despite the loose gravel underfoot. Ethan followed closely, his ears straining for any sound behind them. For a while, all he could hear was the drip of water and their own breathing. Then, faintly, there came another sound, soft but fast, like many feet moving in unison. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. "Someone's following us," he whispered. Syrah didn't slow. "Not someone," she corrected. "Trackers." Ethan's stomach tightened. "And what exactly are they?" "Hunters chosen by the Hunt Mother," she said. "Faster than the warriors, more dangerous than the juveniles. They will not stop until they catch us." Her pace quickened, forcing Ethan to push himself harder. The tunnel sloped upward now, and the dim light grew brighter. As they rounded a bend, Ethan saw a narrow opening ahead, spilling pale blue light into the tunnel. But Syrah stopped abruptly, holding an arm out to block him. "Wait," she said. She crouched low, sniffing the air. "There's a scent here. Fresh. They've laid a trap." Ethan's eyes scanned the ground, but saw nothing unusual. "What kind of trap?" Syrah's gaze shifted to the walls. "A hunting web, invisible until you touch it. Once caught, it wraps tighter the more you struggle." She reached into a pouch at her waist and pulled out a shard of sharp bone, tossing it lightly into the air ahead. It struck something unseen, and suddenly fine, silvery threads shimmered into view, stretching from wall to wall. Ethan stared. "That's spider silk?" "Not a spider," Syrah said, her voice grim. "Worse." From somewhere beyond the web, a low clicking sound echoed. Ethan's skin crawled. Syrah didn't waste time. She slashed through the threads, cutting a narrow path. "Go," she ordered. They slipped through, the sticky strands clinging to their clothes. The clicking grew louder, followed by the scrape of multiple legs on stone. Ethan didn't look back. He focused on the light ahead. They burst from the tunnel into an open space, a wide cavern filled with pale plants and strange, glowing insects. The ceiling was high, with cracks that let in streams of weak daylight. Syrah scanned the cavern quickly, then pointed to a path on the far side. "That way leads to the hunting grounds." They started across, but the clicking followed them out of the tunnel. Ethan risked a glance over his shoulder and immediately wished he hadn't. A massive creature emerged, its body like a sleek black crustacean, its legs long and spindly, its mouth a mess of mandibles dripping with venom. Its eyes glistened as it spotted them, and it let out a high-pitched screech that echoed in the cavern. Syrah grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him into a sprint. "Do not let it touch you." The creature moved fast, far faster than its size suggested. Its legs stabbed into the ground, propelling it forward with terrifying speed. Ethan could hear the snap of its mandibles closing just behind them. They dodged around large glowing plants, the creature smashing through them without slowing. Syrah led him toward a cluster of jagged rocks near the far wall. She ducked between them, forcing Ethan to follow into a narrow gap. The creature tried to squeeze in but got stuck, its legs thrashing wildly. Syrah didn't hesitate. She slashed at its limbs, ichor spraying across the stones. The monster shrieked and pulled back, retreating into the open cavern. Ethan's chest heaved, his whole body shaking. "Please tell me that was the worst thing out here." Syrah's expression didn't change. That was only one of them. They emerged from the rocks and continued toward the far side of the cavern. The light was brighter now, the air fresher. They were close. But behind them, the clicking had returned, multiple sets this time. "They're coming in numbers," Syrah said. "We can't outrun them here. We have to lose them in the grounds." They reached another tunnel, narrower than the last, the walls covered in thick roots. Syrah moved fast, cutting some of the roots aside to clear the path. Ethan followed, feeling the earth beneath his boots change from stone to packed soil. The tunnel opened into a vast expanse under a pale sky. The hunting grounds stretched before them, rolling hills of strange grass, dotted with twisted trees and massive stone outcroppings. The air was filled with distant animal calls, some deep and resonant, others high and sharp. Syrah crouched low, scanning the terrain. "We head for the ridge. There's an old watch post there. If we reach it, we can see the way to the forest." They started moving through the tall grass, keeping low. The ground was soft, absorbing the sound of their steps. But the clicking was still behind them, growing louder. Suddenly, Syrah froze. She turned her head slightly, her golden eyes narrowing. "They've split up. They're trying to circle us." Ethan's pulse spiked. "What do we do?" Her tail twitched. "We run faster." They broke into a sprint, weaving between the trees and rocks. The sound of pursuit was all around now, closing in from multiple directions. Ethan's lungs burned, but he pushed himself harder, focusing only on the ridge ahead. They were halfway there when a dark shape burst from the grass to their left. A tracker, lean and fast, with glinting eyes and claws extended. Syrah met it head-on, slashing across its chest before it could reach Ethan. "Keep going," she shouted. Ethan obeyed, forcing his legs to move. The ridge was close, but so were the hunters. He could hear Syrah fighting behind him, the sound of claws clashing. Then she was beside him again, blood on her claws, her breathing fast. "Almost there," she said. The ground began to slope upward. They scrambled to the top, and as they crested the ridge, Ethan finally saw it, the dark line of the forest in the distance, their one hope of escape. But between them and the trees, something massive was moving. Syrah's eyes narrowed. "The Hunt Mother's trap," she said. "She's been waiting for us." The thing blocking their way was no ordinary hunter. She was enormous, towering over Syrah by several heads, her body draped in ceremonial armor made from the bones of past kills. Her golden eyes burned with cold authority, and the sharp crest along her head marked her as the Hunt Mother herself. Ethan felt his legs lock. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The ridge behind them was swarming with trackers, their clicking and growls closing in. The only path forward was through her. Syrah stepped in front of him, her stance low and protective. "Mother," she called, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "By the law of the blood mark, he is mine." The Hunt Mother's gaze swept over Ethan slowly, like she was already imagining him on the feast table. "Your claim is a mockery," she said, her deep voice carrying easily across the open ground. "You shame your bloodline for a soft piece of prey." "I have chosen." Syrah replied firmly. "By right, no one else may take him." The Hunt Mother's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "Then prove it in the trial of survival. If your human survives, he walks free. If he dies, so do you." Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at Syrah, but she didn't look back. Her eyes stayed locked on her mother. "I accept," she said. The Hunt Mother raised one clawed hand, and the trackers behind them parted to create a wide circle in the grass. The scent of blood and trampled earth rose from the ground. It was a killing pit, an open arena. Ethan's pulse thundered. "Syrah, what is she talking about?" Syrah finally looked at him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held an intensity that made his stomach twist. "You will fight, alone." His mouth went dry. "Fight what?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she stepped aside so he could see the far side of the circle, where a heavy iron gate was being pulled open by two trackers. From the darkness beyond, something moved. Something big. A shape stepped into the light. Its skin was pale and stretched tight over thick muscle. Its head was low, its long jaws lined with teeth that glistened in the weak sunlight. 4 long claws scraped the ground as it walked, its body moving with the slow confidence of a predator that had never lost. Ethan's knees felt weak. "I can't fight that." "Yes, you can," Syrah said softly. She stepped close, her claws lightly brushing his arm. "Watch me. I will not fight for you, but I will guide you. Listen to my voice. Do exactly what I say." Before he could answer, the Hunt Mother's voice cut through the air. "Begin." The beast roared and charged, the ground trembling under its weight. Ethan barely threw himself to the side in time, the claws slicing through the space where he had been standing. Syrah's voice came from the edge of the circle, low and urgent. "It is stronger than you. Make it chase you. Use its weight." Ethan ran, weaving between patches of grass and stone, the monster snapping at his heels. He didn't dare look back. Its hot breath was enough to tell him it was close. Left? Syrah called. He turned sharply, and the creature overshot, skidding across the ground. Again, she shouted. Ethan dodged another swipe, forcing the beast to twist awkwardly. Its tail slammed into the ground, sending dirt flying. The hunt mother watched silently, her expression unreadable. The trackers growled and hissed, eager for blood. Ethan's chest burned, his legs aching. He couldn't keep running forever. Syrah, I can't. Toward the rock, she called, pointing to a jagged outcrop at the edge of the circle. Make it hit the side. Ethan ran for the rock, the beast right behind him. At the last second, he dove to the ground, rolling aside. The creature smashed into the stone with a bone-cracking thud, dazed for a moment. Now it's legs, Syrah commanded. Ethan scrambled up and swung the sharpened bone weapon she'd given him earlier. It bit into the creature's knee joint, making it howl in pain. The beast swiped at him wildly, but Ethan ducked under the swing, heart pounding. Keep moving, Syrah barked. You can't let it recover. Ethan darted around, using the rock as cover, stabbing when he saw an opening. Slowly, the creature's movements grew sloppier, its breathing louder. Finally, Syrah's voice came sharp and clear. Bait it to the pit. Ethan glanced where she pointed, a shallow depression in the earth, its edges lined with sharp stakes hidden under grass. He ran straight for it, making sure the creature saw him. It gave a furious roar and charged. At the last second, Ethan dove aside. The beast's momentum carried it forward. It stumbled into the pit, its own weight driving it down onto the hidden stakes. The sound that followed was wet and final. The trackers hissed in disappointment. The hunt mother rose slowly from where she had been watching, her eyes fixed on Ethan. He survives, she said at last. By our law, he leaves alive. She looked at Syrah, her voice hard. But you go with him. Your place is no longer here. Syrah inclined her head, accepting the judgment without a word. She crossed the arena and took Ethan's arm, leading him away from the circle. As they walked past the hunt mother, Ethan heard her whisper something in their alien tongue. Syrah didn't answer, but her grip on his arm tightened. When they reached the edge of the ridge, Syrah leaned close, her voice low enough that only he could hear. I told you before, if you want to live, you obey me completely. That hasn't changed. The ridge sloped downward into a valley of strange, twisted trees. Their bark was black, their leaves pale, and their branches curled like claws. A thin mist drifted between the trunks, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and something metallic. Blood, maybe. Syrah moved quickly, guiding Ethan through the uneven ground. Behind them, the sounds of the trackers had faded, but neither of them relaxed. The hunt mother's permission for them to leave didn't mean safety. It only meant they would be hunted elsewhere. Ethan glanced at her. So, where are we going? Out of her territory, Syrah said. The forest's edge. Once we cross, her hunters will not follow. And then, she replied without looking at him, you find your way back to your people. And I, she paused for a moment. I go where you go. Ethan frowned. Why? She exiled you, didn't she? She bound me to you, Syrah said flatly. It is both punishment and protection. If you die, so do I. If you live, I must live with you. They moved deeper into the forest, the mist curling around their legs. The ground was soft, muffling their steps. Strange insect calls echoed through the trees, and every so often, something heavy shifted far off in the fog. After an hour of walking, they came to a stream. The water was dark and slow, its surface broken by thin, sharp reeds. Syrah crouched by the edge, dipping her claws in. We cross here. Ethan stepped forward, but Syrah's hand shot out, stopping him. Not yet. Look. She pointed to the far bank, where the mist swirled unnaturally. At first, Ethan saw nothing. Then the fog parted for a moment, revealing shapes, low, sleek predators with glowing eyes, their bodies blending perfectly with the ground. They wait for anything to touch the water, Syrah whispered. Once it does, they strike. Ethan's jaw tightened. So what do we do? Syrah scanned the area. Then she picked up a heavy branch and tossed it into the stream. The splash was loud in the silence. In an instant, the predators moved, darting from the bank into the water, jaws snapping. Now, Syrah said, moving quickly. She leapt across the narrowest part of the stream, landing lightly on the far side. Ethan followed, his boots slipping on the muddy bank, but catching himself before he fell in. The predators turned too late, snarling in frustration as the two of them vanished into the mist. They continued on until the trees thinned. The air grew warmer, the mist fading. For the first time, Ethan could see sunlight breaking through the canopy. "We're close," Sierra said, her tone softer now. But before relief could set in, a low, familiar clicking echoed ahead. Ethan froze. Sierra's eyes narrowed. "Trackers?" she said. "Two of them." They crouched low, moving toward the sound. Through the trees, Ethan spotted the hunters, lean, fast, and scanning the ground for their trail. Sierra leaned close to his ear. "We take them out quietly. If they call for the others, we will not make it out." She moved like a shadow, circling behind one tracker. With a sudden silent strike, she drove her claws into its neck. The creature collapsed without a sound. The other tracker turned, sensing movement. But Ethan was already moving. He gripped the sharpened bone and drove it forward, catching the creature in the side. It hissed and tried to lash out, but Sierra was there, finishing it quickly. They dragged the bodies into the underbrush and kept moving. The forest ahead opened into a wide clearing, and beyond it, Ethan could see the world drop away into open plains, the edge of the Hunt Mother's territory. But standing in the center of the clearing was a lone figure, tall, armored, and unmistakable. The Hunt Mother herself. Ethan's stomach dropped. "I thought she let us go." Sierra's eyes didn't leave her mother. "She let us leave the ridge, not her reach." The Hunt Mother's gaze shifted between them. "You fought well, human," she said, "but the wild beyond is worse than my lands. You will not survive." Ethan didn't answer, but Sierra stepped forward. "Then let us fail or succeed on our own." The Hunt Mother studied her daughter for a long moment, then turned her eyes back to Ethan. "Remember this, human. She is not saving you. She is keeping you. And one day, you may wish she had let you die." Without another word, she stepped aside, clearing the path to the plains. Sierra didn't look back. She took Ethan's arm and guided him forward. As they crossed into the sunlight, leaving the forest behind, the air felt different, free, but uncertain. They walked for a while in silence before Ethan finally spoke. "So, what happens now?" Sierra's lips curved slightly, almost into a smile. "Now," she said softly, "we see how long you can keep up." She leaned close, her voice a whisper in his ear, the same as when they first met in the pit. "If you want to live, obey me completely." This time, the words carried no threat, only a dangerous promise.